Isn't it wild how we looked at people crazy when they would say, back in my day, the food was, the music was, the ambiance was, the city was, and you were just like, shut up, you're old and dying. But when you start getting up in age, you can assimilate. I do it all the time. The older I get, the more nostalgic. Bro, I love sitting on the steps, chilling with my boys. I've lost communication with 95% of them. Bro, the city had an energy, it had a vibe. You would have any excuse to go 5 blocks down just to walk up and down the blocks because it was summertime and the shorty was absolutely wearing a skirt with no underwear. This was life. The music was way better. The energy of the city, even if dangerous, was way better. Everything was so much better. So I reached out to Max Rome and I was like, I want to touch Young Cuba 1999. And that sounded crazy, just hearing myself say that I wanted to touch Young Cuba. That is insane.
Well, you said it was crazy.
Let's rewind that real quick. I wanted to feel like Young Cuba 1999. Wanted to touch Young, what the So I requested a fragrance that was on my little dresser. I had a dusty old dresser right next to my DJ equipment. Yes, I used to DJ as a hobbyist. I was like this fake aspiring turntablist with 2 Technic 1210s and a Technics, I believe it was the SH1200 battle mixer 2-channel that was part of the DMC championships. I thought I was hot shit. Some bookshelf speakers. I had the mini Bose speakers rigged up into an amp, which probably could have caused a fire. But this fragrance was right there on my mantle, Young Cuba, trying to bag up anything that would come through. And that fragrance is Chanel Allure Homme. I haven't smelled this fragrance in so long, and I want to see if in 2023, as opposed to 1999 or 2000, if this shit still holds weight. Let's roll my motherfucking music so we can go and touch old Cuba.
We're all alone, yeah, but some friends from the south side, in case you cared, out of all your friends, I want to be Cuba!
Blessed morning, my beautiful peoples. You know who it is. This your boy, C to the U to the B to the A. At that time, I still had a few fragrances because I would always steal them from my grandfather. My grandfather had at least 50 fragrances in the kitchen. We had a bunch of cabinets, and he had his one set of cabinets that were full of fragrances, not to mention the closet where he had his oils, where he was make his own fragrances and go to Harlem. I believe it was 114th or 16th Street. They used to sell these like oil spots that used to make their own fragrances, like the clones back then. Dude was part of the membership program where you would pick the oils. Oh, Armani just came out, I'm getting 2 of them for pennies on the dollar. So truth be told, the clone influence I got from my grandfather. Go figure. I haven't smelled this fragrance in years. I don't know how many years, but multiple. Definitely a decade at least. And Chanel Allure Homme was a fragrance that just hit at that time, but I don't remember it much. And I know that this fragrance, I believe, came out around that time because it was like a new release. I went down to Chocolate in Washington Heights to buy this joint. Chocolate is actually still around. He sells glasses and shit, probably watches my channel. And I picked up this puppy back in the day because there was only a few spots. There was Chocolate, which was like an official spot, and then there was dude on the corner of 181st Street and St. Nick, right next to the train station, had a little cubby with a bunch of stolen fragrances, but he was a little bit cheaper, and I used to bag up stuff. That's where I got my diesel, with the diesel milk bottle cologne joint, the Old Masculine or whatever the hell it is. But this one I got at Chocolate, and I was like, you know, I wanted to get something fire because it said Chanel on it. It said Chanel and Homo on it, and I was like, yeah, that speaks to me. But ever since then, I haven't smelled this fragrance. I was like, let's revisit. Let's take it back. Let's step away from the niche spaces because I'm having an amazing time with niche fragrances, discover all these intricacies and all these fun notes and shit like that. And let's take it back to Young Cuba. I'm feeling nostalgic. I want to see if something like this would be something that I could wear today or I would recommend today. Maybe it's just that I want to feel nostalgic and smell this fragrance and see if that muscle memory in the medulla just kicks in and I start to feel like Young Cuba, wearing my shitty wallabies and my fucking windbreaker pants and basketball jerseys that were too tight because my tits were too big. All that good shit. Fragrance is amazing. I'm getting goosebumps. I'm getting emo. Wow. Shit, it's like, I'm getting a little emo. It's kind of that moment where I would assume somebody feels like getting that flashback moment before you're dying, that your whole life starts playing before you and you're just going through that movie reel. I've always said my life is a movie. I even have it tattooed here. That's the movie reel and that's life in cursive. My life has always been a movie, a major motion picture with a lot of plots, twists and turns. And this feels like a chapter in that flick. It's sweet, milky, ambery, herbal. It's a lot sweeter than I remember, but it's beautiful. It's beautiful. I could totally pull this off now. Almost feels slightly unisex the way that it's so clean. It has this fabric softener sweetness to it. Almost a sticky sweetness, not full gourmand, but there's a lot of a milky sweetness here. I don't remember the notes for shit, but I just dropped the cap. Talk about bringing me fucking back. Wow, guys. I mean, man. If you guys want to share some of the Cubano backstory to see some of the movies that have translated into my life, go to patreon.com. I actually give like a breakdown, like the coming up of Cuba and some of the roller coasters in life that you might find interesting, kind of movie-esque, that you may or may not believe that I was participating in. And yeah, it's interesting. I love this. It's perfect for me. It's perfect for nostalgic purposes. It's great for the hot weather. I'm very curious to see what the notes currently are, because back then, who cared about notes? I mean, people shouldn't care about notes now. Just care about what kind of emotion it should evoke off of you. And this evokes amazing memories, but it doesn't smell dated. It's actually pretty now. I used to rock this shit all weather, all season like a good tire, but this does have a little bit of a summer-esque spring type vibes. I'm curious on these notes. Let's look them up. I didn't know it had this many notes. Lemon, peach, ginger, mandarin, lavender, bergamot, pepper, cedar, patchouli, vetiver, rosewood, Brazilian rosewood, jasmine, rose, anise, freesia, vanilla, tonka bean, sandalwood, coconut, amber, benzoin, musk, leather, oak moss. I actually pick up a lot of those now that it's starting to read them. I do pick up a lot of that energy, but what you do get is that peachy sweetness. You do get that gingery, airy spice along with the pepper. Lavender vibes is still there. Bergamot is always present. Amber is beautifully present. And that milkiness, I'm assuming, is coming from that vanilla and coconut blend. The leathery vibes also adds like a little bit of a body and a base, so all those notes sit right on top of it. It's a very, very nice fragrance. I think it's great. I think it's Cuba today. This is, man, the fucking good old days. Oh man, waiting for Ja in the corner, waiting for the other boys. There used to be like 4 or 5 of us sitting on the Jewish synagogue steps, always getting kicked out on Fridays. Luckily, it was right across the street from my building. The Jewish dude who was like holding down the synagogue, I don't know what his name was, but we used to call him a patón because he had one foot that was extraordinarily bigger than the other. I'm not even capping. So he was like a size 9.5 on one foot and like a 13.5 on the other foot. He used to walk around with this like clown foot thing. It was insane looking, but he was a cool dude. The older I got, we actually became more cordial. As the younger I got, he was like, oh, hoodlums, or they're gonna ruin our neighborhood or whatever. The older that we got, he was like into baseball, real cool, very, very super duper religious. But I think at one point I was really intoxicated in the elevator, and we were in the elevator together. He had just come from like the synagogue, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. And I said something about his big ass foot, and he actually kind of giggled. I was like, look at this guy, he could take a joke. And I think from there, it kind of all switched over. His wife was creepy though. She definitely looked like the Blair Witch Project. I'm not even gonna lie to you. This brought me back to an amazing place, and I don't feel that this has any dated qualities to it. I think it smells wonderful. I think it brings back amazing memories. And shout out to Max Aroma for sponsoring today's video and bringing me back to the late 90s, early 2000s with this amazing memory that I'm not mad at. This shit smells like a vibe right now, especially with this humid weather. I love y'all mother suckers from the heart. Do you like this particular fragrance? Does this bring you back? I know that there's the O Extreme and all these hypey ones. I'm talking about the flying under the radar joints that bring you back to the childhood when you're an old, dusty, washed motherfucker like me. I'll see y'all bitches next time. You know who it is, biggest in the game. Bro, 2000 Cuba used to clean up. Fat boys were in. Heavy D opened the gates. Smooches.
Cubaknow.
best. Wanna know who's gonna pass the test.
For the fly gun holder, money folder, motor roller, start attack when it's time to call back. For the rough, rugged, and raw way, this nigga Jay, it's a game, but he don't play. Ay, for all the chicks that got dead in the penthouse suite on top of my mom's crib. It's nonsense, you never get in. It's nonsense that you would think that you would